Yeah, hi, is this Dustin?
Yes, it is.
Dustin, it's Bill Moseley. How are you?
Good. How you doing, man?
Good, man.
You ready to do this thing?
Sure. Yeah, I'm glad to be doing it.
I'm sitting here with my co-host, Ton.
How you
All
doing?
right.
What's happening?
Hey, man, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Well, first of all, I heard a rumor that you might be doing another movie with Rob Zombie and that you were writing a screenplay and some other stuff. I don't know if maybe you want to elaborate on that.
Well, that sounds exciting. Yeah. I hope it's true. Well, let's see. I don't know about a movie with Rob. I certainly would. That would certainly be great. But I don't have any. There's not like an immediate plan to do it. I don't think there's really anything there. I actually heard through the rumor mill that he has just submitted a script. I know not what it's about. I do know that it's not Devil's Rejects 3, so that's a good rumor to put to rest, I guess. And I do know that Rob has just finished a new CD, and that he's planning, I think, to go out in a month or two and tour that sucker. So, there won't be any. I don't think there'll be any film production out of him for a while.
Right.
Certainly not until later in the year. If at all. So what we're all doing is kind of just in a way waiting on Rob. Kind of like it feels like a tug of war between music Rob and movie Rob. But we're just all of us, Sid and Ken Forey, Michael Berryman, Priscilla Barnes, a bunch of us are going to different, horror conventions and, just generally hanging out, going, auditioning, trying to get new jobs and moving on.
I mean, I think you're probably most known for horror roles and stuff, but you've done some other things outside of the horror genre.
Oh, yeah.
Which one do you think you prefer out of the two?
Well, let's see. You mean like horror or non-horror?
Yeah, basically.
I know horror pretty good. It's kind of like, I guess, I think probably Kobe Bryant likes to play tennis, let's say. But he poured in 81 against the Raptors the other night as a basketball player. But he might be just a really fun and happy tennis player. Now, I'm not sure if that's exactly the same.
Yeah.
Because I approach, it doesn't really matter what genre it is for me. I don't really alter my acting style. I mean, it's not so much a style as just kind of an approach to it. So, I certainly enjoyed being in Carnival. I enjoyed working with Clint Eastwood on Pink Cadillac. I mean, there are a lot of different, types of movies that I'm happy to do. I just happen to personally love horror movies. So whenever I get a chance to do them, I know my way around pretty well. And, I really just like, knocking people on the head with claw hammers and, just doing horrible stuff to people. It's really a lot of fun, actually. So
it's a lot more interesting than like Honey, I Blew Up the Kids or. Yeah,
although that was a good gig, though. I actually, I dug that gig. That was Honey, I Blew Up the Kid was actually a Randall Kleiser movie. And Randall I had worked for on the Disney movie White Fang. And Randall hired me, he said. I asked him on the set, I said, that was my first big job, kind of a big studio picture with Disney and everything. And I said, actually it was, Warner Brothers. I did that Clint movie, I think, before White Fang. But it was right around that same time. And I said to Randall, long after, I'd already, the ink had dried on the contract, I said, how come you hired me anyway? And he said, the Vegetable Man. And I went, wow. And I had, on my reel at the time, I had dressed up in a costume of vegetables for an MTV show called Andy Warhol's 5 Minutes, way back when in the early 90s. And I had like a grass skirt of carrots with carrot tops on them, and I had this crown of tomatoes that was kind of dribbling juice down my head, and I had I was singing into. I made a microphone out of a fresh ear of corn, and had a bunch of lettuce on my wrists and ankles, and I did this. Actually, it's on the Cornbugs. It's called Vegetable Man, and I used to do that a cappella, just wearing vegetables, and so I had done that for the Andy Warhol MTV show, and that was on my reel at the time, and I guess Randall had been interested in me via the audition process, and I guess the clincher was, going to the videotape and seeing Vegetable Man.
Nice.
So because of that, which is pretty weird and extreme, I got the part of the henchman of Beauty Smith, in the Klondike Gold Rush of Alaska for White Fang.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's all kind of, really, when it comes right down to it, the walls are, there are walls in terms of genres. One, you can distinguish one from another, but, you just suit up and show up. You get to the set on time. You try to know your lines to the best of your ability. You try not to drink too much coffee, or you'll end up playing the caffeine and not the character. You try to pace yourself so that, when you get there at 3 in the afternoon, all full of, piss and vinegar, and they don't get to you until 4:30 in the morning, and it's cold, and you're completely exhausted, and your adrenaline has long since broken down into adrenochrome, which is a real downer, and you got nothing. You're just made of cardboard, and then they call you, they knock on your little door, and they say, okay, now it's time for your big emotional scene. That doesn't matter what genre you're in. When you got to do it, you got to do it, and you better have something in some secret tank somewhere.
Wow.
That happens a lot, by the way. The old, get there at 3, really being like, looking like Hamlet, and then, when they finally get to you at 4:30 in the morning, there's a whole different deal. Making movies is tough. It's. I think a lot of people get. There are two impressions people get. One is they get the impression of they actually see the movie itself, which is usually about 90 minutes plus, and they see a different scene, and they just see kind of one thing. They see it edited. They see the music. They see the different shots. It's all nicely put together, and they look up and they go, I could do that. And then they also see maybe the Oscars or the Golden Globes, the glamorous, the babes, the guys are in their tuxes, they're walking the red carpet, there's a lot of flash bulbs and Joan Rivers with a microphone, and people go, man, I'd love that. And then they find out these people are getting like $1 million to do, and they're going, man, I'd really like to do that. But you know what? It's really behind all of that, when you really, it's 4 in the morning and it's cold and you got nothing in the tank and you got to do something, that's, or you're asked to do some kind of a physical scene, kind of an action scene. The really tough stuff maybe they give to the stunt person, but then, you got to fall over or trip or come out of a window or get kicked in the ribs by Diamond Dallas Page. And there's no glory there, man. There's no glory. Just sometimes you really it's tough. I love that kind of work, and I am actually I'm able to do that, and I know what the deal is, and I'm still excited to do it. So that's the good news. But again, it's not all it's cracked up to be. At the same time, I've gotten in trouble saying that because I don't want to demystify, because movie stars and movies, it's all very glamorous, and it's kind of a fantasy for a lot of people. And the last thing they want to hear is kind of the the cut and dried version of it.
I have to say, I sort of understand somewhat of what you're saying. I actually took part in helping to make a feature-length independent film here in Minnesota, and I look at movies totally different now because of it, just because I've seen, I was just the audio guy, but having to deal with actors and stuff, they don't know, their lines or whatever, and just like you say, sometimes in the middle of the night and things are going wrong or whatever, and then you see it afterwards, and it's like, man, there's a lot of stuff, that went on around this one, 15-second clip here that you're looking at that's, part of this whole masterpiece, so to speak.
Yeah, and, a lot of times, there's also a lot of heartbreak. You might do, as any given scene 5 or 6 times. There might be, different lenses, different angles. There might be a close-up, which is just, one person, a 2-shot, which is 2 people, a master, which is, the whole thing. Mm-hmm. You might end up having some kind of a glitch that costs your, the best performance. Maybe you were awesome in take 3 and, all right in take 4. But unfortunately, take 3, just due to editing, there was a sound glitch. You could hear a plane in the background. Something screwed up with the film, or the focus was a little off. And you end up losing that performance. I mean, again, that's there's tragedy too. They might end up, not to embarrass you, but they might end up losing the best takes and everything. What you do is you try to keep your ego out of it and just go, what, my job is just to do the best I can. Again, show up early and on time, know my lines to the best of my ability. Not drink too much caffeine or too much tequila, and basically turn it over to the director, the editor, the producer. Unless you're Tom Cruise or something, who probably sits there and decides which of his takes will be included. Once they've yelled cut and start moving the cameras to the next shot, that's basically it's no longer in your hands.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering. I guess you can be as vague with this answer as possible, but what does a guy like yourself, I know you've done some sort of B-roll stuff, but Devil Rejects is pretty huge. Do you really make a lot of money, and who controls how much money you can really make as an actor doing these type of things? Is it your manager, or is it up to you, or?
Well, I never had a manager until I did Devil's Rejects, so I'm enjoying the fruits of that new relationship. Just because I never really had anybody that was a champion like that. A manager, actually, at least my experience with one so far, it has been really great. I'm very excited to have a manager.
Yeah, it's not the big.
Because mostly I would basically get the work myself and then just leave it up to my agent. I now have a new agent as well, but. And usually there wasn't a lot of negotiating. It was basically kind of take it or leave it stuff. The money on Devil's Rejects was pretty good, but it's certainly not enough to buy a new car or a house for that matter.
Okay.
And what you try to do, I guess, is you always try to build money-wise. You try to build on. One role leads to another role, and you get some kind of, bigger fame or familiarity, and you just hope you kind of, fail upwards and get cool agents and powerful people that can say, well, of course, this is the great Bill Moseley, and he's going to need, $500,000 to, work for 2 days on this movie. That's what you kind of hope for. It's a $1,000 ashtray. That's the old joke. All you need to do is sell one. But I certainly haven't. It's been a tough living, and I'm certainly not out of the woods yet. The good news is that like most of us, I'm a union actor, and therefore, I have a pension and I have benefits. Basically union benefits. It's also good because the amount of my salary determines. Ultimately, the amount of my pension. So the more I earn, when I am old and gray, I'll get a few more bucks every month in the mail.
Sure.
I'm certainly not in the, 8-figure bracket by any stretch.
Yeah.
Working on it.
Yeah.
I got a last movie question here for you. I think you're kind of, at least in my opinion, in kind of a unique situation where a lot of people can kind of recognize you as, Choptop from Chainsaw, but now also as Otis from the, the new films. And I was just wondering, I know maybe it's like picking children between, or something for you, but which one would you think you'd rather be associated with, or be, be known as?
Well, let's see. I am actually, happy with both of them. I think they're such different characters, even though, they seem to be, horror characters, but they're so different that, I would have to say that, for some things I really prefer Otis. I like the fact that Otis is a stud, and he's like a kick-ass type guy and all that kind of stuff. And, I also love Choptop's humor. That's really kind of more my style in terms of, yucks and maybe, lifestyle or approach to things. So, again, I like them both pretty much. It's kind of funny because it's really, somebody was asking me the other day about maybe doing a Otis versus Choptop movie or something like Freddy versus Jason.
Oh, man.
Not even sure who would win that, actually. But anyway, so I guess that's not a great answer. But
Well, maybe that movie will come to light sometime then.
yeah, it'd be great. Where are you guys in Minnesota?
Mankato. It's like southern
right.
part.
Nice.
You been here before? Or?
You know, is that anywhere near Rainy Lake?
I'd say,
I'm sorry, International Falls, Fort Francis.
yeah, a little. It's going to be more south from there.
Yep. All right.
So, but I mean, it ain't far off.
Yeah, because I used to go to a canoe camp up there when I was a kid.
Sure.
Yeah.
You have to stop in and do the show sometime then.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, I want to ask you a few questions about the Cornbugs. It's kind of the idea of the radio show. We play your music a lot, and the last interview went over pretty well. A lot of people were pretty psyched about it. So.
Oh, good.
First, I wanted to ask you, you had 3 albums out, and then they went out of print, and then you've decided to reissue them, but, I mean, you've kind of, like, chopped them up, no pun intended there,
Yeah.
into, like, 3 new albums. I was just wondering what the reasoning behind that was.
It's interesting. It's a good question. The first thing was that on each of the 3, there are songs that Buckethead wasn't really behind in terms of I went ahead and made a lot of those first recordings just because I had these tapes that were sitting in my drawer for like a couple of years after we had actually made them. And so I just I took them and I talked to him about it, and I just went ahead and made these CDs. And as it turns out, there were a couple of songs on each one that we couldn't use for different reasons. One reason was that some of them, like, there was kind of an I Come in Peace type song, or there were some Deli Creep songs, apparently. I didn't know about the Deli Creeps. I didn't know that they had done, like, the same type song and stuff. I mean, there was one, like, I dreamed I went dancing in a maiden-form bra. Anyway, there was, I forgot that was, I think it was called Head Cheese or something like that. And anyway, that was, like, apparently like a Deli Creep song. So, the three CDs came out. Buckethead dug them, but I think there was, it was kind of one of those things. If I had it to do over again, I would just as soon not include those particular songs, which might get him in trouble with the Deli Creeps or whatever. Right. So there was that. There was also there's one song on Cemetery Pinch. It was called Polka Hell, which we did in one of Buckethead's in the kitchen sessions. And what I had done was I just brought a tape of like polka music that I happen to have, and then we put on his disco box, and then I kind of I sang Polka Hell over that polka music. And I found out that if you do that, if you actually use someone's music in a song and don't credit them, that you can get you can get arrested or something. I don't know, some horrible thing, which wasn't my intention. So, that got dropped. So there were a couple of like copyright things. There was also right before Pigs Are People 2, I do a little a cappella of Sit Down, You're Rockin' the Boat from that musical Guys and Dolls. And that was something that, that we, in order to release that, that particular cut with that, with that bit of a cappella, we would have had to have gone to Harry Fox and gotten some kind of, an agreement with Lerner and Lowe. Also, we did a version of The End on How Now Brown Cow, the Doors song, and that was also, in order to sell that, with actually like a real CD with barcodes and the whole deal, what we needed to do was to, again, go to Doors Music and, do all that, do the legitimate way of doing it. And so instead of doing that, since, those CDs were really just kind of, like kind of fun CDs. But, what I wanted to do was because all of the 3, if they were to be remastered, and that was long before I'd ever met Travis Dickerson. And Travis has this, awesome studio where we did Donkey Town and Brain Circus. And he has, some great music editing machines. And so what I decided was that if we were to reissue stuff, that the best way to do it was instead of reissuing CDs, that were actually minus a couple of tracks each, that it would be cool to, kind of just treat the whole thing as like a pool of songs, and weed out basically the ones that we didn't have the rights to, or the Deli Creeps, or Buckethead, or all the things that that might affect the tracks. And then I thought it'd be a cool idea to get Frankensoos, who did the cover art for Spot the Psycho, and also the great Eric Piggers, who's done the covers for Rest Home for Robots and now Celebrity Psychos and Skeleton Farm, to get actually Piggers involved in reissuing the kind of mixed and matched Cornbugs CDs, so that instead of being How Now Brown Cow minus a couple of tracks, and Cemetery Pinch minus a couple of tracks, and Spot the Psycho minus a couple of tracks, we just kind of mix and match and reissue them. And the nice thing about the reissues is that they all got run through Travis's huge Apple machines, so they've all been mastered. They were never mastered before. So some of those songs, and if anybody's listening that that tried to crank up a couple of songs on the old CDs and had their speakers blow out, I'm sorry about that. But the nice thing about the new ones is that the remastered ones or reissues is that your speakers won't blow out. At least I don't think, because of anything that we didn't do in the mastering process. The other reason that I wanted to do that was also because I was getting sick of burning them. I mean, I didn't burn them myself because I'm not computer savvy in that area. But what I was doing, I would take the originals of Spot the Psycho, How Now Brown Cow, and Cemetery Pinch to this place, this kind of dub house, and then I would get maybe 100 CDs of each burned at one time. Then I'd bring them back, and as the different orders would come in, I would pull out my magic markers and mark on each of the this regular plain wrap CDs. And then I would go to the copy shop, and I would make prints of the front and back covers, and try to get the copy shop to line them up so that the cover of Spot the Psycho on the inside would have the track list, and I was popping a bunch of jewel cases and cutting things and sticking them in, and so it really was kind of a pain in the butt after a while. You do that enough, and it's like, geez. So, I actually found myself dreaming for the time when there would actually be, like a real CD with really mastered by machines, and there would be a barcode, and there would be this huge, printer that would actually print front and back covers, and there would be, there would be disc art that would actually be fixed to the disc by machines. I mean, I was just, kind of getting a little crazy there, and when Bucket introduced me to Travis Dickerson, and Travis is a great guy, and also has that great website tdrsmusic.com, and he's done a lot of Bucket stuff. He's worked with Viggo Mortensen. He's got a lot of different artists that come through him and sell through him. So he had all of that down. He has this great place in Florida called Progressive Media, and they, did some very good work for a decent price. Of course, then we're talking about the big leagues, at least in terms of Cornbugs, because to get one CD, they require a minimum 1,000 in the order, per order.
Yeah.
So you end up with a lot of, you better have a big garage space or, a really good marketing program. Fortunately, I have a big garage space, so, we certainly sold a bunch of Cornbugs off Travis's website. I think Bucket's got some on his website, and then, at choptopsbarbecue.com. But for the most part, and I also sell them at some of my convention appearances. But for the most part, I have a couple of crates still down in the garage, with a bunch of. I think we sold out of Brain Circus, but the rest of them we still have a pretty good supply. The nice thing about CDs, of course, is unlike fish, they don't go bad on the shelf. But that's that's how we've become. We're big time. I mean, we're really very much independent. We have our little label that we don't have a copyright or a trademark on, but it's called Reco Records. And just a couple little skulls. Actually, what I wanted as the for the trademark was just to have a kind of a Betty Page woman like on a rack, like an old torture rack, in kind of a black and white cartoon with her. And out of her mouth, instead of screams, are coming musical notes. I mean, that was kind of like, or maybe it's a guy. It doesn't have to be a woman. I just, think that way. But
well, I think the Reco.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
But so it's been very much of just this kind of it's just kind of something that we do on occasion that was fun. And seemed to be something that people liked, and so I put just enough effort into it so that there's actually a couple of CDs out there. I think probably overall, I don't think we've maybe in 6 or 7 years of doing this, I bet you we've maybe sold 1,000 CDs. I'm not sure.
That's not bad. I mean, considering you don't get a lot of airplay, I'm assuming, or it's mostly word of mouth. So
that's for sure.
I also heard. Obviously, this might be bogus since my other rumors that I heard were, but I heard you were possibly working on a new album that might be acoustic.
I haven't spoken to Buckethead probably in about, I think maybe 4 months. So if that's true, I mean, I'm happy to hear it. But the last time I saw Bucket, we got together and. He really seems to be more interested in doing a DVD. That seems to be where the action is.
Yeah, you mentioned that last time.
Yeah, and so what we've done is we've had a couple. We have some different pieces of footage that his nephew has had a video camera, and we've gotten together a couple times, and basically that's I think probably our next focus is a DVD that. Right now, the working title is Dance Bugs Dance, and basically what we do, because we're kind of broke. Speaking of big movie star wages, we're actually kind of broke. So what happens? What we do is when we've gotten together the last couple of times, at his dad's place or somewhere out in wherever he lives in the twinkling beyond. What we do is we basically take a bunch of Cornbugs CDs and stick them on the disco box, and then put on masks and different costumes and stuff. And usually he plays like air broom. He just picks up a broom and starts like playing it like a guitar. And I don't know, pick up dummy heads or different things, and then we just dance to the music that's coming out of the disco box. And his nephew takes video footage of that. So I guess the idea is at some point to try to assemble all of that with other strange things and put out a DVD. But I really couldn't tell you when that's going to happen.
I heard that you actually played live on stage as, I don't know if it was as the Cornbugs or maybe just with Buckethead on maybe like some off dates or something, but I don't know if that's true.
It happened once. Yeah,
just
it was
once?
at it was here in Los Angeles, and Bucket was playing. And it was actually a lot of fun. But he was playing it was kind of his giant robot band or whatever he was calling it.
Yeah.
And we did do that once. He, I was I was a guest. It was called the Knitting Factory in Los Angeles, and Bucket was playing with Butthouse and Brain. So he was doing his three-man, his Buckethead trio tour. And I got up and did, Save Me the Slunk. And I think, that Maximum Bob from the Deli Creeps jumped up and did a number or two. So it was kind of like, I think we were kind of guest vocalists or whatever. I remember Jack Black was there. I don't think he did anything. But, that's it. That's basically our one live performance.
You see yourself maybe doing that more in the future? Or?
I don't know if I see myself doing it with Buckethead. Things can change at any time. I think, though, that we've been doing this for, 7 or 8 years, and I think there would have been, were that going to happen, probably would have happened by now.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that I might not. I might do something different. I'm just really not sure.
I'm gonna have to get some side projects together or something.
Yeah, I think so. Yep. I was kind of hoping, to do a duet album with Rob Zombie, but
yeah, well, that could be.
I don't think that was it.
Maybe he'll bring you on the road or something.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys can go canoeing or something.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Go canoeing here in Minnesota.
Yeah, go canoeing and just be careful of those killer rabbits out there.
Yep.
I hear they got them in the water.
Yeah.
The one thing I was kicking myself. I forgot to ask you the last time that we talked to you, but I was just kind of curious what you would say some of your musical influences would be.
Well, certainly Captain Beefheart, an old favorite of mine, and I really like Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, Steve Earle. A more recent influence certainly is P.J. Harvey. I think she's awesome. I love the Kinks, and lately I've been listening to a lot of Falco. Really into Falco. I don't know why that is. Really love Der Kommissar and Rock Me Amadeus. A friend of mine from Germany sent me a bunch of Falco songs, and that seems to be all I can play in the car now.
Nothing but Falco.
Falco!
Do you think maybe some of that will creep up in the new Cornbug stuff? It'll have kind of like a Falco sound to it.
I was thinking about maybe covering, doing a cover of Falco. I think that'd be really cool. I've learned how to do it. At first I was scared. Like anything I had to cover, I didn't want anything to do with, non-original material, just because I didn't know how to handle it or deal with it. But now I've learned it's pretty simple. You get some online form from Harry Fox. I think that's the name of the thing, and you fill in what song you're covering or whatever. And I think the standard fee is like 8 cents per CD sold. So in our case, it really wouldn't be that much.
Wow.
Fortunately, but yeah. I mean, if there were some songs to cover, certainly Der Kommissar. Yeah, I could definitely dig that with doing Der Kommissar with Cornbugs. Dee 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 dee. Oh oh oh. Der Kommissar is back. Ho ho ho. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah. But I've always liked Zydeco music, and I like all kinds. I love Notorious B.I.G. I think he's just a drop dead genius. So I have a lot of different kinds of music I like. But and I love Bucket, man. Bucket can really do some really wonderful and really miraculous things with that guitar.
He's putting out new albums, it seems like, every month.
Yeah, he is a very prolific guy. I just got a copy of that to Enter the Chicken, and he did that with that guy Serge from System of a Down, and I guess I have a little cameo. I haven't seen it yet, but there is a video for one of the releases on that album, and I did a cameo in that video, and I haven't seen it yet. So, but I do remember doing it. I did it in Griffith Park here in Los Angeles, and I was an escaped convict handcuffed to another guy, and we got a hold of an axe. We're in the middle of the bushes, and we got a hold of an axe, and we stuck our hands on a big rock, and I lifted the axe and, came down hard, I think just as the camera cuts. And so I think there is a severed hand in the video. And I don't know if anybody has figured out just whose hand it is, mine or the other guy's.
Where can
the good news is that we used a rubber axe.
Where can we see this video?
You might go to bucketheadland.com. Maybe it's on the Buckethead site or something. I don't know. But it's definitely, I think it was in rotation because a bunch of people saw it. So yeah. I mean, it was fun to do. I brought along my 7-year-old when we shot it, and she, at one point, she's quite an actress in her own right, and she, when there was a break in the action, she looked into the camera, and she loved that rubber axe, and she was holding up the axe, and she looked in the camera and said, "I am the devil, and I'm here to do the devil's work." I was like, uh-oh.
Wow.
Shucks.
So
Gotta get her back on cartoons.
You think she's gonna like carry on the family tradition, or?
I sure hope so. Yeah, because the family tradition is actually pretty mellow. We're just plain folks. Every once in a while we get a little carried away, but for the most part we're fairly well behaved.
You used to make appearances on some of Buckethead's solo stuff. I mean, like before the Cornbugs. Has he put a stop to that now because the Cornbugs is kind of like a separate deal, or you think maybe you'll make an appearance?
No, because I did that Save Me the Slunk on Monsters and Robots, and he did that after we had started doing Cornbugs.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, I don't think that would be the reason, but yeah, I'm willing to do it. You got to remember, Buckethead is a very elusive person, and I don't see Buckethead that much. And that's just basically the way it goes, and that's why in fact, all of Cornbugs is first take with no rehearsal. There has never been a Cornbug song on any of those 5 CDs that has been rehearsed or that there has been a second take of. I don't think. Maybe 1 or 2. I mean, that's a lot of songs. That's probably like 50 songs. But most of them, the lion's share of them are just kind of get together. He starts playing something. I either make it up, just out of my head, or else maybe I have some old poems I've brought along and just pull one out and say this seems to fit the music. I mean, that happened on the CD Brain Circus. The first song is really a good rollicking song called "Riders of the Whistling Skull." And when he first started playing that music, I actually started doing "Hippie Days Are Done," which is also on Brain Circus, but comes at the end of the CD and with radically different music. But he started playing, and I pulled out "Hippie Days Are Done" and started doing "Hippie Days Are Done." Now the good news is that was actually done at Travis's studio, so I was actually in the soundproof booth with the microphone kind of thing. So I started doing "Hippie Days Are Done," and then it just wasn't working. So I just pulled out "Riders of the Whistling Skull," which was a poem I had, and started doing that instead. And then when it came time to editing the tunes, there's the beginning of "Riders of the Whistling Skull" is "Hippie Days Are Done," and that wasn't working. So what we did was just erase that part, just erase the vocals. And it's funny because "Riders of the Whistling Skull," if you listen to it, it's got an awfully long intro.
Yeah.
And the reason being is because I used to have other vocals that got erased. So instead we just had this really long intro, and that's kind of Cornbugs. It's real spontaneous. But it's also that I never really see Bucket. I don't think I have ever seen him 2 days in a row. So the idea of Cornbugs, it's kind of like this hit and run thing because Buckethead is gone or whatever, out of touch, and basically it's what you get is what you get, and it's the good news is that that's how I like working as well. In terms of I don't mind hitting it and then that's it. Kind of that one chance, and that makes it kind of exciting. That certainly keeps the music alive. It's not exactly what you'd say. It's not crafted like some song that takes 3 months to assemble in a studio. And there's most music is made that way, and I certainly love it and appreciate it. But with Cornbugs, it's kind of like that's kind of a wham bam thank you ma'am kind of approach. And I like that too, because a lot of it sounds like maybe it was not crafted over months, but a lot of it sounds like that at least we all knew what we were doing before starting the song.
It sounds like you have fun doing it too.
Yeah, it's a ball.
It does. It's kind of. I mean, sometimes it seems like it might suck the life out of songs if you work on a particular, section of a song for 8 months or something. And just kind of
Yeah,
kills
and it can. I mean, there are people that just, that end up, it's kind of like, popping zits when you're on speed. You just end up finding new ones all over your face. And, ultimately, your face is a bloody mess. With Cornbugs, it just is, it's a lot of fun. We go in, we go out, nobody gets hurt, and, it's on to the next. Like, I had not played with Bucket in, I'm sure it was at least a year or two. And finally, we got together at Travis's, a couple of years ago. He showed up with Pinchface, and the three of us, along with Travis, who plays a mean Hammond organ, went into the studio right after lunch. It was probably about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I had my McDonald's coffee, and I guess everybody had some snacks or something, and we just Bucket went into the control room where that was the guitar studio. Pinch was on drums in the drum room. I was in the little glass room for the vocals, and Travis was also in the control room with Bucket. And occasionally jumped on the organ there. And we worked from say 1 o'clock in the afternoon till maybe 6, so 5 hours, pretty much 5 hours straight, and we banged out 27 songs, and 14 of those are Brain Circus, and the other 13 are Donkey Town. So those two CDs, those were all one-take wonders, and those two CDs were done on one afternoon. As my dad used to say, "Are you bragging or complaining?"
Yeah.
Not really either. That's just how we work.
I know on the first couple albums you had a lot of drum tracks and stuff like that. Would you consider like Pinchface and even Travis Dickerson to be like permanent members of the Cornbugs now, or?
Well, certainly Pinch. I mean, Pinch was so good that day. I mean, he was. The reason that we had drum tracks before was, one time. The first time we got together was just me and Bucket there, so there really was no drummer, and I think it was just kind of the first time we got together was really kind of a lark, and so a lot of the first tracks we ever did were drum machine, guitar, and vocals, and then Bucket brought Pinch in, and that really added a whole new dimension to Cornbug stuff. Then we did, and we were off for a while, and then we gathered in Buckethead's apartment one afternoon and recorded Cemetery Pinch in his kitchen. And it was just him and me and the drum machine and weird laugh tracks. He had a bunch of weird samples on some little machine. And so we just cranked out Cemetery Pinch with just the two of us. When we did Donkey Town and Brain Circus that afternoon, Pinch was on the drums, and yeah, boy, he did such a great job. I mean, it was really inspiring. He did some fantastic drum work, and of course, he does the drums on "Spot the Psycho," which is one of our great early songs. And I don't know if he did "Lord Lawnmower." I think "Lord Lawnmower" was a machine, of course, because a lawnmower is a machine. But yeah, I mean, I love Pinch's drumming is just fantastic. And actually, it's great because I think Bucket and Pinch and somebody on bass, just did a tour recently. So it was great that Pinch is going on the road with Bucket, because he's a really good guy and a great drummer, man. Wow.
I think they tour as the Deli Creeps, or?
I don't know. I think that I don't really know. I don't know if that's. I don't really know. I don't know if they did or not, or if they toured as, I don't know what the hell they did, actually. I just don't know.
Well,
There you go.
Well, I guess that's all I got for you. I don't know if there's anything that you want to plug, maybe that you're working on now, or?
No, not really. Just, happy to be alive, and, I don't know, just kicking around. I look forward to... maybe some more Cornbugs. I mean, I would certainly like to do that. If I can find the Bucket Man, you never know when the full moon is shining and there's, the wind in the trees and, the owls are hooting. You never know if the Cornbugs might, pop out of the graveyard and do another one. What I'd really like to do is, I still You know what I do is I usually write my my poems and lyrics when I wake up first thing in the morning. I roll over and I got a notebook by my bed and just start writing weird stuff. And so I've been writing, so I have some more Lollapaloozas to lay on the innocent public. So yeah, I'm still game. So, and I want to thank you guys for playing Cornbugs. Probably on the George Bush hit list for that, but. That's why we tried to throw out Boots Upon the Ground, just to, hey man, don't put us on Guantanamo. But yeah, we are subversives, that's for sure, and hope that that those of your listeners who identify as subversive, antisocial and potentially rebellious bunch, keep up the good work.
That's our audience. They're a bunch of creeps.
All right. Right on. Creeps rule.
Well,
again, thanks, guys. And, this is the 20th anniversary, actually, of Chainsaw 2.
Yeah, that's weird to think that it was that long ago. But
yeah, tell me about it, man.
Wow.
When I tie on my corrective footwear and, get out the walker, I mean, it's like, shit. Where did the time go? But at least in honor of that, let me say, lick my plate, you dog dick.
Nice.
I don't know if you can say that on your station. If not, just join Howard up in the satellites.
Yeah,
we're creeps though. We don't sweat the higher ups.
Yep.
All right, good. All right, guys. Well, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, maybe next year around this time we'll catch up with you again.
Yeah, sounds great.
We can go canoeing or something.
That'd be good. I'd like it.
I gotta say, I've never heard as many sweet analogies in one conversation as this one tonight.
Oh, good, man. Well, thanks.
That was phenomenal.
I just came from writing class.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. And earlier today I was at singing class, so, go figure. Oh, here they come.
That sounds like you got something going on there.
They're coming for you.
Damn it. They found me.
Yeah, thanks again, man.
Thanks for asking. Okay.
See you.
Bye.